When stars whispered secrets. The vast emptiness of space held countless secrets, but Dr. Elena Vasquez had never expected to stumble upon one that would change everything. She sat alone in the research lab aboard Harmony's Edge, a human scientific station positioned at the edge of known space, where the boundaries between different alien territories blurred into neutral zones. The soft blue glow of her computer screens cast shadows across her tired face as she analyzed the latest batch of radio signals from distant stars. Elena specialized in xenolinguistics, the study of alien languages and communication patterns. For 3 years, she had been documenting the various ways different species sent messages across the galaxy. The work was often boring, filled with routine trade negotiations and standard diplomatic communications. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something extraordinary was hiding in the endless stream of cosmic chatter. The signal appeared suddenly on her monitor, cutting through the background noise like a knife through silk. Elena's breath caught in her throat as she watched the patterns dance across her screen. This was not like any modern alien communication she had ever seen. The mathematical structures were ancient, elegant, and impossibly complex. The signal pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive, carrying within it a sense of desperate urgency that made her heart race. Elena quickly ran the signal through her translation programs, but the computers could only identify fragments. The language belonged to the Etherians, a mysterious civilization that had vanished from the galaxy over 10,000 years ago. According to galactic historians, the Etherians had been peaceful explorers who possessed technology far beyond anything that existed today. They had simply disappeared one day, leaving behind only ruins and legends. But this signal was not ancient. The transmission patterns showed it was broadcasting right now, somewhere in the Veil Nebula, a dangerous region of space that most ships avoided. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she enhanced the signal quality, trying to extract more meaning from the alien words. What she found made her blood turn cold. The message was a distress call. Someone or something was crying out for help from the depths of space, using a language that should have been dead for millennia. The mathematical patterns suggested coordinates, pointing to a specific location deep within the nebula's swirling clouds of gas and dust. But most disturbing of all was the tone of the message itself. Even through the barriers of translation and time, Elena could sense the fear and desperation embedded in every syllable. She immediately contacted Captain Torres, the station commander, but his response was predictably cautious. The Veil Nebula was notorious for destroying ships that ventured too close. The radiation and gravitational anomalies made it a graveyard for explorers. Besides, the Galactic Council had strict rules about investigating extinct civilizations without proper authorization, and getting that authorization could take years. Elena spent the next several hours trying to convince other species to investigate the signal. The Zentari Empire dismissed it as impossible, claiming that dead civilizations could not send messages. The Aquatic Confederation was too focused on their trade routes to care about ancient mysteries. Even the usually curious Insectoid Collective showed no interest, stating that the risk was too great for uncertain rewards. But humans were different. Elena knew that her species had always been driven by an insatiable curiosity that often bordered on recklessness. Where other races saw danger, humans saw adventure. Where others saw impossibility, humans saw a challenge to overcome. She sent her findings directly to Earth Command, hoping that someone there would understand the significance of what she had discovered. The response came faster than she had expected. Captain Marcus Chen, commander of the exploration vessel Endeavour, contacted her within hours of receiving her report. Chen was a veteran explorer known throughout human space for his daring missions and his unwavering moral compass. His ship was currently resupplying at a nearby starbase, and he could reach the signal's location within 2 days. Elena found herself aboard the Endeavour before she fully realized what was happening. Captain Chen had insisted that her expertise would be essential for the mission, and she could not resist the opportunity to solve the greatest linguistic mystery of her career. The ship's crew welcomed her warmly. though she could see the mixture of excitement and nervousness in their eyes. They were about to venture into one of the most dangerous regions of space, chasing a signal that might not even be real. The Endeavour was a sleek vessel designed for long-range exploration. Its hull gleamed silver-white against the backdrop of stars, and its advanced engines could push the ship to incredible speeds. Captain Chen ran a tight but friendly operation, and Elena quickly felt at home among the diverse crew of scientists, engineers, and explorers who had dedicated their lives to pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. As they traveled toward the Veil Nebula, Elena continued to study the signal with the ship's more powerful communication equipment. The message became clearer with each passing hour, and she began to understand fragments of its meaning. The sender was definitely Etherian, but they spoke of things that should have been impossible. They mentioned watching and waiting, of guarding something that must never be found, and of a growing darkness that threatened all life in the galaxy. The crew gathered in the main conference room as Captain Chen briefed them on the mission. Elena shared her findings, explaining the historical significance of the Etherians and the strange nature of the signal they were following. Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's archaeologist, expressed fascination with the possibility of finding intact Etherian technology. Lieutenant James Morrison, the tactical officer, worried about the potential dangers they might face in the nebula. Captain Chen listened to all perspectives before making his decision. The signal represented a unique opportunity to make contact with a supposedly extinct civilization, but more importantly, it was a cry for help. Humanity had always believed in answering such calls, regardless of the personal risk involved. The crew voted unanimously to proceed with the mission, knowing that they might be flying into unknown danger. The Veil Nebula loomed before them like a massive wall of colored gas and swirling energy. Beautiful and terrible at the same time, it stretched across space for light years in every direction. The nebula's radiation played havoc with the ship's sensors, making navigation extremely difficult. Captain Chen ordered the crew to proceed slowly, following the signal's source while carefully avoiding the worst gravitational anomalies. Hours passed as they penetrated deeper into the nebula's heart. The exterior view screens showed an alien landscape of purple and gold clouds illuminated by the light of distant stars. Lightning-like energy discharges crackled between gas formations, creating a display that was both beautiful and threatening. Elena monitored the signal constantly, using it as their guide through the cosmic maze. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected something massive hidden within the swirling gases ahead. As they approached, the nebula's clouds parted to reveal a structure that defied description. It was clearly artificial, but unlike anything in any known database. The object was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and appeared to be made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. The structure's surface was covered in intricate patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they contained mathematical concepts too complex for the human mind to fully process. Spires and towers jutted out at impossible angles, connected by bridges of pure energy that sparkled like captured starlight. At the structure's center, a massive dome glowed with the same rhythm as the distress signal Elena had been tracking. Captain Chen ordered the ship to maintain a safe distance while they studied the alien construct. Elena's equipment detected communication arrays that were still functioning after countless millennia, suggesting that someone or something was still alive inside the crystal fortress. The signal they had been following was definitely coming from within the central dome, and it was growing stronger by the minute. Dr. Kim's scans revealed that the structure was made from materials that should not exist according to current scientific understanding. The crystal formations seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating a technological marvel that surpassed anything humanity had ever imagined. The energy readings suggested power sources that could fuel entire star systems for millions of years. As Elena worked to establish communication with whatever was inside the structure, she noticed something troubling. The signal's mathematical patterns were changing, becoming more urgent and desperate. The sender seemed to know that someone had finally arrived, and they were trying to convey information as quickly as possible. Alina's translation programs worked frantically to keep up with the flood of alien words and concepts. The message that finally came through was simple but chilling. An ancient voice spoke across the void in words that Alina's computers translated with haunting clarity. You should not have come. The guardian sleeps no more. The darkness awakens. But perhaps there is still hope. Please, you must listen. Time grows short, and the galaxy stands at the edge of destruction. We have waited so long for someone brave enough to hear our warning. Captain Chen made the decision that would define humanity's role in galactic history. Despite the obvious dangers and the warnings embedded in the alien message, he ordered the Endeavor to dock with the crystal structure. Whatever secrets lay within that impossible fortress, whatever dangers threatened the galaxy, humanity would face them head-on. The crew prepared for boarding operations, knowing that they were about to step into a mystery that had been waiting 10,000 years for someone curious and brave enough to uncover its secrets. The signal that had started as a whisper among the stars was about to reveal truths that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. Echoes of a fallen empire. The docking procedure with the Etherian structure proved more complex than anyone aboard the Endeavor had anticipated. The crystal fortress seemed to sense their approach, and portions of its surface began to shift and reconfigure themselves. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched in amazement as geometric patterns flowed across the alien hull like liquid mathematics, creating a docking port that perfectly matched their ship's airlock specifications. Captain Marcus Chen led the boarding party himself, accompanied by Elena, Dr. Sarah Kim, Lieutenant James Morrison, and Chief Engineer David Park. Each team member wore full environmental suits equipped with advanced sensors and communication equipment. As they crossed the threshold from their familiar human technology into the alien realm beyond, Elena felt as though she was stepping through a doorway into another dimension. The interior of the structure defied conventional understanding of space and physics. Corridors stretched in directions that seemed impossible, and the walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that responded to their presence. The gravity felt lighter than Earth normal, and the air composition readings showed a breathable atmosphere that somehow remained perfectly maintained after millennia of abandonment. Elena's translation equipment worked overtime as they moved deeper into the complex. The walls themselves seemed to be covered in text, flowing scripts that told the story of the Etherian civilization in beautiful, haunting detail. She caught fragments of history as they walked, tales of peaceful exploration, scientific discovery, and a golden age of cooperation between countless species across the galaxy. The team followed Elena's tracking of the distress signal through winding passages that seemed to rearrange themselves as they progressed. Dr. Kim documented everything with her scanning equipment, muttering in amazement at the technological marvels surrounding them. The Etherians had clearly mastered sciences that modern civilization could barely comprehend, yet their aesthetic sense remained hauntingly beautiful and organic. They eventually reached the central dome that Elena had identified as the signal source. The chamber beyond the massive doors was breathtaking in its scope and beauty. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, covered in a star map that showed the galaxy as it had existed 10,000 years ago. In the center of the room stood a crystalline formation that pulsed with the same rhythm as the distress signal, and within its transparent depths they could see a figure. The being suspended in the crystal was unmistakably alive, though clearly in some form of suspended animation. It appeared humanoid but possessed features that marked it as definitely alien. Its skin had a subtle luminescence, and delicate patterns covered its elongated limbs like natural tattoos. Most striking were its eyes, which remained open and aware despite its dormant state, following the team's movements with obvious intelligence. Elena approached the crystal formation carefully, her translation equipment picking up new signals. The being within was trying to communicate, sending complex mathematical patterns directly into her equipment. Gradually, the alien language began to make sense, and Elena found herself in direct conversation with a member of the legendary Etherian race. The being introduced itself as Zephyr, a title that roughly translated to Guardian of Final Knowledge. Zephyr had volunteered to remain behind when the rest of the Etherian civilization faced extinction, tasked with waiting for someone worthy enough to receive a terrible warning. For 10,000 years, Zephyr had maintained the beacon, hoping that eventually someone would be curious and brave enough to investigate. As Elena established clearer communication, Zephyr began to share the true history of the Etherian civilization's fall. The story that emerged was far more complex and terrifying than any galactic historian had imagined. The Etherians had not simply vanished. They had made a conscious choice to sacrifice themselves to prevent a cosmic catastrophe that would have destroyed all life in the galaxy. Thousands of years ago, during their explorations of the galaxy's most ancient regions, the Etherians had discovered the ruins of a civilization so old that its origins predated the formation of most star systems. Among the artifacts they found was a weapon system of unimaginable power, designed by beings who viewed most forms of life as contamination that needed to be eliminated. The weapon was a galaxy-spanning network that could sterilize entire star systems, reducing complex matter to its basic components. The discovery had initially excited the Etherian scientific community. They believed they could study the ancient technology and perhaps adapt it for peaceful purposes. But as they investigated further, they realized the horrifying truth. The weapon system was not truly inactive. It was simply waiting, gathering energy from cosmic radiation and quantum fluctuations, slowly building toward an activation threshold that would trigger an automatic cleansing of the galaxy. Zephyr's thoughts carried the weight of unimaginable sorrow as the story continued. The Etherians had tried everything to disable the weapon safely. They had attempted to redirect its power, to reprogram its ancient systems, to simply destroy it through conventional means. Nothing worked. The technology was too advanced, too well protected, and too deeply integrated into the fabric of space-time itself. The weapon's activation was tied to the galaxy's level of technological activity. As more species developed advanced technology and began exploring the cosmos, they unknowingly fed energy into the ancient network. The Etherians calculated that the activation threshold would be reached within a few thousand years of their time, triggered by the natural progression of galactic civilization. Faced with this impossible situation, the Etherian leadership made a decision that would define their legacy. They could not disable the weapon, but they could delay its activation by reducing the galaxy's technological signature. The only way to do this was to remove the most advanced civilization from the equation. They chose to sacrifice themselves, using their own technology to create a massive energy drain that would set back the activation timeline by thousands of years. Captain Chen listened to Elena's translation with growing horror. The implications were staggering. If Zephyr's story was true, then the galaxy was still under threat from an ancient weapon system that could activate at any time. Moreover, the recent expansion of spacefaring civilizations, including humanity's own rapid technological development, was accelerating the timeline toward catastrophe. Zephyr confirmed their worst fears. The ancient weapon was approaching its activation threshold once again. The Guardian had detected the signs over the past several decades. Strange energy fluctuations in deep space, the mysterious disappearance of remote star systems, and subtle changes in the quantum background radiation that pervaded the galaxy. The weapon was awakening, preparing for its programmed function of galactic sterilization. Elena asked the obvious question: why had Zephyr waited so long to send the distress signal? The Guardian's response revealed the depth of Etherian wisdom and their understanding of galactic politics. They had known that most species would refuse to believe such an incredible story, or would be too afraid to take action. They had waited for a species that possessed both the technological capability and the moral courage to confront an impossible threat. Humanity, Zephyr explained, had impressed the Guardian with their rapid advancement and their consistent willingness to help others despite personal risk. Unlike many species that had achieved space travel, humans continued to explore dangerous regions, answer distress calls from unknown sources, and take action when faced with moral imperatives. These qualities made them the ideal candidates to continue the work the Etherians had started. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on the boarding party's shoulders. Zephyr was asking them to carry on a mission that had already claimed an entire civilization. The Guardian possessed detailed information about the ancient weapon system, including possible strategies for its permanent deactivation. But the task would require convincing other species to cooperate, accessing dangerous regions of space, and confronting technology that surpassed anything in the modern galaxy. Dr. Kim raised practical concerns about humanity's capability to handle such an enormous responsibility. Earth's technology was advanced by current galactic standards, but it seemed primitive compared to what the Etherians had possessed. How could humanity succeed where such an advanced civilization had failed? Zephyr's response carried a note of hope that had been absent from the rest of their communication. The Guardian explained that the galaxy had changed significantly since the Etherian era. Multiple species now possessed different types of advanced technology, and their combined capabilities might be sufficient to address the ancient threat. Moreover, humanity's natural tendency toward cooperation and their reputation for persistence made them ideal coordinators for such a massive undertaking. The Guardian offered to share all of their accumulated knowledge about the weapons system, including detailed technical specifications and proposed countermeasures that the Etherians had never had the opportunity to implement. This information would give humanity and their allies the best possible chance of success, but it would also make them the primary targets if other species learned about the threat and chose to eliminate the messengers rather than face the danger. Captain Chen faced the most important decision of his career. Accepting Zephyr's knowledge would commit humanity to a course of action that could lead to their extinction. The ancient weapon was real and dangerous, but convincing other species to take action against it would be nearly impossible. Humanity would likely find themselves standing alone against a threat that had already destroyed one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. But the alternative was even worse. If humanity walked away, the ancient weapon would eventually activate regardless. The galaxy would face destruction with no warning and no preparation. At least by accepting the responsibility, they would be giving all species a chance to survive, even if that chance seemed impossibly small. Delina watched Captain Chen's face as he weighed their options. She could see the same quality that had made humanity respected throughout the galaxy: the willingness to do what was right regardless of the personal cost. The captain's decision would define not just their mission, but humanity's place in galactic history. Chen stepped forward and looked directly at Zephyr through the crystal barrier. His voice was steady as he spoke the words that would change everything. "We accept the responsibility. Humanity will take up the burden your people carried. We'll find a way to stop this weapon and protect the galaxy, even if we have to do it alone." Zephyr's relief was palpable even through the alien communication interface. The Guardian began the process of transferring millennia of accumulated knowledge to Alina's equipment, preparing humanity for a battle that would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. The beacon that had called across the stars had finally found its answer, and that answer wore a human face.